welcome back to the No Score Review Show, where we have in-depth critique and nuanced discussion of some of the latest video games, movies, and television. Today, we will be talking about The Acolyte, Season 1. I'm your host, Nick Green. This is the first review I've done in a hot minute. It's been a long time. I've gone on a bit of a hiatus with some life stuff going on that has thrown some things up in the air, but I wanted to eagerly get back into this. And I just figured I was kind of hoping it would be on more of a positive note to return to the channel. And I don't fully know the extent of what my guests' opinions are on The Acolyte, but if I have any inkling, I don't think it's going to be a very positive episode. But we'll see. We'll see how we fare. The first bit of this review will be spoiler free, so we'll spend a little bit of time giving some spoiler free thoughts just to give some insight on what we thought and like if it was worth it or not. And then I'll do an explicit spoiler warning for when we get into the nitty gritty details. A lot of what I want to talk about anyway will require those spoilers, so I will make that abundantly clear. But yeah, for now, joining me for this review are my out of focus co-hosts.
I'm trying to get out of focus.
Partners in crimes.
Yeah, let's get there.
Scott Milne and Michael Bentley.
Oh, hi.
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you so
I'm
much
still
for joining me. And I'm also Nick.
Yeah.
It's a crossover episode. Yeah, thanks
I'll
for
turn-
coming on to the show.
Yeah, I was just say I'll turn the Santa Claus on in the background so we can get a real
Perfect.
get a
Just
real
do a
crossover.
loop of all of our commentaries in the
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
You know what?
It's
No,
about-
I'll just layer it into the audio for this episode,
Yeah.
and it'll just be one like gobbledy mess. No, thank you so much for joining me on this return to the No Score Review Show. It's going to be a bumpy ride, I think. It's going to be an interesting episode, to say the least. But yeah, so for our spoiler-free thoughts, we'll start with Scott, I think. What were you feeling going into The Acolyte, and how did you fare coming away from it?
Yeah. Well, let me first say it's fun to be back doing Star Wars as well as we always do. So I think we just missed Bad Batch, the final season there. So
I was wanting to do Bad Batch Season 3 with you earlier this year, but scheduling and everything and life stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll revisit it eventually.
Yeah.
Also, I wouldn't be surprised. It's in the name. It's bad. The show's not bad.
No scores on the show, Michael. Thank you very
That's not a score. That's an opinion. Is this a no opinion show? Because this will be really short.
I'm going to go ahead and kick you from this call real quick. Right?
But yeah, no, going into Acolyte, I kind of had my expectations set pretty low. Especially considering that going in, it was touching on High Republic stuff.
Okay.
Which, I mean, if you've done any other High Republic stuff through like games or books, those bars are pretty high because that's where you're talking like Knights of the Old Republic or even like the MMO of the Old Republic, which like those get pretty balls to the walls with Star Wars. But I could kind of tell with like the new Disney era of things where it's just like I'm just gonna take this bar and we'll just
drop it a few pegs. Yeah,
bring it down a bit so that hopefully we're not gonna trip over it.
Well, and like with a few of the past shows, just touching on like how I've had you on multiple times. I think for every Star Wars thing I've covered on the show, you're kind of one of my resident Star Wars guests, and the last few shows were a little more middling. Like even Bad Batch was kind of like season 2 when we last reviewed. It was like it was okay. Bad Batch was probably the best of the bunch, best of the batch even. Ironically, but so going into this, the bar was kind of low. We were a little middling on Ahsoka. I think that was the last thing we reviewed together.
I would say sometimes it feels like we're getting like this tidal wave of like shows where it's just like, oh, you get Andor, and then we're coming with Obi-Wan, and then we're like just a little bit up with Ahsoka.
And we get some Visions season 2, and that was really interesting. And then we get some Mando season 3, and that's like, okay, well,
but yeah, no, with Acolyte, I kept things pretty tepid, and I think that was the right place to put them. So I'm not saying that like I'm walking away wholly disappointed. Like I'm interested in what could potentially develop in season 2.
Mhm.
Especially with how it kind of relates to how it is with like the prequel kind of
Right.
series, and how we might get from the points in Acolyte to, you know,
The prequels.
where everybody is in Phantom Menace.
Right.
Um,
Fountain Menace. That'd be
the
horrific.
Fountain Menace, yeah, you know,
Get away from our fountain. No,
yeah,
I live here.
yeah, it's a chocolate fountain, but you know, it's not good premium chocolate. So, um, uh, but yeah,
That's going to be the scoring system from here on out
yeah,
on this channel. Was it premium chocolate or was it subpar no name brand chocolate?
yeah, yeah. We talking like, you know, is it like a good Toblerone chocolate, or is it just like,
So
you
this
know,
is such a stupid bit.
just like a Milky Way chocolate? So yeah. Um,
So you
but
came
yeah,
away
no,
disappointed,
it's
relatively,
yeah.
but
I mean,
interested.
yeah, there was a couple episodes where it's just like skip, skip, skip.
Right.
Here's a good bit here, but
Right.
could have been condensed down into maybe 4 episodes. So
Right. Michael, what about you? How are you feeling? I know, yeah, we talked ad nauseum about your kind of expectations for Star Wars going forward,
They spent
and
$180 million to make ass.
and that's a
and
spoiler
like
free
not
review,
even like
ladies
a
and
nice
gentlemen.
ass, you know, it's
No.
like just a gross
Rhino diarrhea.
Yeah.
Oh no.
My expectations honestly were probably for something a bit better. My expectations, because I love the High Republic. I love it. It is the most fun period of Star Wars where you just have
High
100
Republic
Jedi.
specifically, not even
Yes.
just Old Republic, like Legend stuff.
No, like the High Republic. It's like
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay.
there's a good bit there. And I guess like Old Republic also fits into this, but like Old Republic has like a different design aesthetic that I'm not like quite don't quite gel with as much. High
Gotcha.
Republic is this fun bit where it's 100 Jedi on one side of the field, 100 Sith on the other side of the field, and running towards each other. There's lightsabers everywhere. And it's
Yep.
fun, and it's stupid, and it's great, and it's some really, really good high fantasy shit. There's not a lot I can say without spoilers. I don't know why anyone wants to watch this. It's not
It's
good.
not that. It's not what Michael just described.
No.
Spoilers.
No. That's the thing. Is like it was my specific problems with it. This this wasn't even really the period of High Republic that I'm most fond of, which already kind of lowered the interest a bit. Is
So
because you want to go before Yoda's born, which is 900 years before the prequels. You want to go there
Right.
because we were told during Yoda's lifespan there were no Sith. And so that's the thing is like that's why I wanted to go back because then you could do Sith. But I'm like, oh hey, they said it in the High Republic era. You can still have the fun bit, which was lots of Dark Jedi, which is like kind of just splitting hairs. If we're going to be honest, we're kind of splitting hairs, calling it Dark Jedi or Sith.
Yeah.
And you have spice pirates, and I thought there's a really good thing. Star Wars generally does pirates pretty damn well, space pirates pretty damn well. I'm like, there's things you can do in here. And they didn't do any of them, and the things they did do, they didn't do well. There were some things, but we're not in the highlight section of your Google Docs, so I can't say the things I like. But overall, I went in expecting a show at least 6 out of 10, and it was ass. It was
Ass out of 10.
because I can't give my score. I can give my previous thoughts as a score,
rate
but I
it
can't.
on the chocolate fountain scale, Michael.
Ass produces the
dipped
kind
in
of
the
chocolate.
Oh no, I regret it immediately. I regret it immediately. Okay. Also just for like context though, like so I guess question for both of you. Are both of you like were you more familiar with High Republic going in? Like did you read any of the books or any of the like extended materials that were already released prior to this show? Because I went in just completely blind.
Yeah. I guess as Michael correctly described it, I'm a little bit more familiar with Old Republic, like definitely pre-Yoda.
Okay.
The only other sort of High Republic stuff that has been around as of late was with Jedi Survivor.
Right.
In that, and like if anybody out there has like played it and has done like all the stuff in there, it
Right.
loosely touches on some of that, but it kind of also didn't maybe do that the best because it was, as Mike also pointed out, Dark Jedi.
Gotcha.
'cause,
Okay.
yeah.
And then
Jedi going
Michael, did you
back-
read any of like the books or anything?
Oh hell no. YouTube videos.
Oh, okay.
But I feel it's so fair because there's like 30, 40, 50 books per era of Star Wars. And that's like
Right.
the era that they didn't have the movies about. You'll find a fucking book about Han Solo's fucking like car manual. And not like the Millennium Falcon, like his car manual. And like the time he had to change his radiator like fluid
Right.
and shit like
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
No,
So we were
so-
all well, not necessarily. We were all on the same level in terms of we haven't like read the books or anything,
Mhm.
but you
Mhm.
two are a little more familiar. Like even like myself personally, I wasn't even that familiar with Old Republic stuff. Very loose understanding of like certain characters and like events and things that
Mhm.
went on. And was more familiar with just the general aesthetic overall, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was really excited for them to kind of take a step back from the Skywalker saga era and the era of the what is it in the prequels? New Republic? Just Republic?
This is the High Republic.
End of the Republic. So
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
well,
or end of the High
oh,
Republic.
the prequel era, that would be like that. I think that would just be called the Civil War era because that's when,
Okay.
even
guess,
though technically
Prequels era,
for-
everyone knows
yeah.
what we're kind of
even though for
referencing.
like 10 years, like after Episode 1, the CIS just didn't do anything. They're like, you've won this time, but we'll be back. And then for 10 years, they're just like,
We'll
we
meet
should do something.
again, Spider-Man.
And then the Green Goblin doesn't show up for another 10 years. He just shows up. Spider-Man's like eating a donut. Like this comes. Oh, what the fuck! I told you we'd meet again, Spider-Man. That kind of shit.
But yeah, I was really excited for them to kind of just take a huge leap away from the known kind of canon that we had established with the movies and shows and stuff. And I was like, it's a little high expectations in a way that I put on it of being like, perfect. This is the perfect opportunity to start what would be a completely clean slate because they effectively, since they reorganized canon for Star Wars, they already had published a few books on like High Republic and whatnot, but they had full creative license to basically start from scratch, do new characters, new storylines, develop their own aesthetic for the Star Wars universe that they could lean on, and just like have a fresh start overall. That's what I was most excited for because I am of the group in the Star Wars fandom that's like very tired of character spin-off shows and like constant cameos in different shows and the persistent storytelling that they seem to be going for with all of the shows. I do enjoy a few of the shows and movies and whatnot, but I still would prefer this kind of soft reset in a way. And the old or High Republic would have been the perfect opportunity to do that. Still can be. Like, I'm not completely writing it off from this show, but that's what I was kind of hoping for going in. And I mean, aside from that, I didn't really have much to expect. The marketing tricked me a little bit, I feel like, and tricked like many people with really selling like Carrie-Anne Moss. That's all I'll say in terms of spoiler-free thoughts on that. And even just a couple other like small tidbits they released in like trailers and whatnot. But yeah, I came away from this show pretty disappointed. I think there was just a lot of really questionable decisions in terms of pacing and editing and just like really underdeveloped character choices and character dynamics, or like virtually non-existent character dynamics that needed to be there in order for things to work the way they wrote it to work. And then like aside from that, like I do think like the one thing I think the show has going for it, which really just kind of reduces it to a montage of YouTube clips, unfortunately, is that I think it is bar none the best lightsaber combat we've gotten in the Disney era, live action anyway. unless you want to count like season
Yeah.
7 Clone Wars, since they technically like
Yeah.
performance captured that. But
That's
really all I have to say positively about it. Like, there's a couple gleaming moments here and there, and even stuff in the finale, and like how you say, Scott, of like potential interest for a second season that they set up. Like, even just kind of stepping back from that and being like, well, they're really just cameos, and like that didn't um save the first season for me. Like,
yeah.
I don't have that much investment in being like, okay, I'm signed on for season 2. Like, when that comes around, I'm like, I don't know, I might just stick around, like wait it out for reviews and see if it's good after the fact, and if not, then I'll just stick with what we have. Because like, this is the thing when it comes to Star Wars overall, whenever I review it, like, it's so big now, and there's so many different avenues, and I know there's like technically a hard and fast canon that like Disney is adhering to, definitely, and like most of the fandom will probably follow them with. But like, at this point, for me, it's just like pick and choose, and just kind of establish like, this thing's good, I like this, I'll revisit it from time to time, you know. um so, but yeah, kind of came away from it being disappointed. I'm not quite off the Disney Star Wars train yet. Like, I'm still open. I mean, we're in an interesting time now. We won't talk about it too much right now, but we're in an interesting time where there's not really anything on the horizon for Star Wars Disney in terms of anything like, we have like the 3 movies that have been announced and they're in development and whatnot, but it's pretty open season, I would say,
Not even
and
open season 2.
undetermined. Yeah.
Not even open season, the TV show, I'd say. Just like regular open season 1,
Yeah.
2006.
Yeah. But yeah, it wasn't in the cards for me. It's not something I don't think I'll revisit past just revisiting those lightsaber fights on YouTube. But other than that, yeah, that's all I really have to say. I can't say that I would recommend it. I've seen like tons of love for it on the subreddits and in the comment sections and everything, and I'm like ecstatic that people are like connecting with it. And like, it kind of just goes back to that topic of like, it's so big now that you can really just choose whatever you want to be a fan of for Star Wars, and that's fine. So yeah, I think with that we can kind of drop the spoiler curtain here. And if you haven't seen Star Wars: The Acolyte Season 1, then pause this review here. We're going to be getting into major spoiler territory for all 8 episodes. So come on back once you've seen it, or if you don't care about spoilers, then stick around.
Come on back. Come on round, y'all. Listen to the
So-
Tale by the Fire.
Transition.
I don't know what that was. That.
Star wipe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are manual transitions.
Yeah, who wants to go first for like, what do you want to talk about first? I
What are we
like
talking about?
Carrie Ann Moss.
Can I
was
say some positive things?
Yes, sure.
No.
Absolutely. And we're gonna kick Scott from this call.
I want to say that Lee Jung-jae, who played Soul,
Mhm.
I liked him. He was good. He
Yeah.
was like kind of like that good kind of Jedi Knight, Jedi Master stuff.
Mhm.
I think he played the role well of kind of like, okay, this is kind of like a traditional, or what the idea of like a good Jedi Knight of like the High Republic.
Mhm.
There are times where you get the feeling where he's kind of playing it almost to like that of Qui-Gon Jinn, where he's just like, I really want to do the right thing.
Mhm.
But ultimately his ass just keeps on getting burned just over and over and over again.
Right.
And I was really sad at the very end of episode 8 when they just take that body of his, throw it under the bus, and say adios. So yeah,
Stop talking.
yeah. So he plays the character well, and like where he and Qui-Gon definitely differ is like he has way more naivete to him. he definitely has
Right.
some more blind spots. I mean, yeah, like he wants to love his Padawans and everything, and that's supposed to be bad.
Right.
And ultimately, yeah, it kind of does really get him
Hmm.
in the end. But I don't know.
I would agree. I really liked him. I liked his performance, I would say, more than his character. Like, I think he did really
Mhm.
well with the material he had. Where it faltered a little bit for me was in some of the motivations in developing it. Like, I really think more time could have been spent, not just on him, like really all of the characters, just like fleshing that out a little bit more and seeing
Yeah,
more of his kind of mental turmoil and everything. And
yeah,
like them killing him off really sucks because then we don't get to see any more of that either, right?
no,
Um, but no, I think he did a fantastic job like performing the role. Um, I would honestly say performance wise, I enjoyed the show overall. It's the writing and the
yeah,
like character development that made it suffer for me. But
I like
yeah,
performance
how they
wise, I would
said the
say
words, but not the words they said.
yeah.
I like how they say it, not what they're saying. Um,
Uh,
but yeah, like
for
May and Osha, like I thought her actress was really good. Like
that,
when it
they're
served.
yeah, good. But then you definitely get this really big flip flop feel from them in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, there
Yeah,
was
where it's just
severe
like,
underdevelopment in some decision making and just
yeah,
how they like kind of progressed their characters throughout the show. And it
yeah.
felt a lot of the time overall with the show that things happened because the writers needed them to happen, um, and no other
Can I
reason.
speak to that? And Michael, you can chime in here. So yeah, definitely
Let's
spoiler.
chime.
Yeah, a little bit higher if you can. So, um, nailed it.
Thank you so much,
Um,
Michael.
one thing that I felt like wasn't really earned was also at the end of episode 8 when Osha has Soul's lightsaber in her hand, and yes, she's going dark, but for her to like instantly corrupt the kyber crystal and have it just go red, like we didn't even get that with Anakin when he goes Darth Vader, right? Like
So
even when he's still fighting Obi-Wan and like he is overwhelmed with hate and stuff, his lightsaber is still blue. So for her to just be like, I'm mad at Soul now, here's your red lightsaber, it's like, come on.
that
Like,
I
see,
think is the only instance in the show, because I think there's been quite a few instances of sort of retconning or kind of canceling out things that have happened in like prequels and whatnot,
Yeah,
where I understand like the grievance with it because it's a very clear
yeah.
indication. And conceptually, I loved that scene. And I
Mhm.
also just like think, because I have a problem with, and this is like getting kind of into the thick of the lore and how the force works and stuff, but like I don't like the way they set up um red lightsaber origins now, and like because they have I don't want to really get into it, it's a whole thing unto itself.
I think the
Conceptually, I
biggest
really
thing,
liked the scene,
yeah,
and I think it's a really cool way to show someone's fall to the dark side.
yeah,
Visually,
because that's
it
always been the
wasn't
lore, and
fully
it's,
earned.
yeah,
Yeah.
it
And it
hasn't
really
been
does mess
shown
up Revenge of the
on
Sith,
film.
especially not
Yeah.
even just in his fight with Obi-Wan Scott, but when he's killing like
the
dozens of
women and
children,
the children.
the women and the children, Scott.
Yeah,
Think of the women and the
Because
children.
literally, because that's the
and
thing is,
his
Osha is mad about her mom being dead. Anakin had his mom just die in his arms,
He
and
had
he's just like,
multiple points where his lightsaber could have been
but
corrupt.
but
yeah.
before he turned on his lightsaber, it is fair that he said, "This is just a onesie to it." So like, it knows that it's
He- we get a hyper close up
Yeah,
and it's just his lips next to
just
the hilt, and it's
just a quick
just this
JK.
time.
Yeah,
like
I
this is
crossed my
just a one
fingers,
time.
so I didn't mean
Yeah, we didn't see behind his back he had his fingers crossed.
But no, like visually, it is a really good way to show bleeding of a lightsaber. I liked it, especially like the way the ignition and that the origin of
yeah,
that being a Sith saber is really cool. Oh, this is the lightsaber of my previous master, and he did me wrong, so I took it. And if a much cooler and better developed character had done that, cool beans.
Yeah.
But does Scott still have more to say, or should I get it? Should I hit my microphone
You
more?
can just get into it, Michael.
He's been trying to say things for 30 minutes. All right, and I'm over here.
I made my point, so yeah.
Okay.
The thing with me is that I think there is a fundamental misunderstanding of what this period in time was supposed to be. So referring to the Jedi, it is the High Republic. This is 1950s Americana in an American movie. The Jedi are like uber good. They're like uber good and uber proper. This is like they are monk maxing, to like pull from our current lexicon, if you will. Like, you know, like that vibe of them being like these thoughtful and slow thinking people, like that's on display here fully, or should be in the High Republic. They have all the money and all the power they need, but they don't want to do anything with it because all they're really getting called in for is like, oh, there's a spice pirate. This planet's kind of being gross because of the Rusan reformations, which means there's no armies. I could go into this. So basically, they're kind of like a police force, but they're only called in when it's really, really difficult to talk to people. They're
like peace officers. They're like real life peace officers.
Yeah.
Like social workers.
And but they spend then most of their time philosophizing, getting into art. Their art being lightsaber combat. They're doing it as an art form and form of focus. They are not power hungry, not yet. That's what happens in the prequels. That's like it takes a galactic civil war to get them to be to want to hold on to their power. That's why that's why Lucas put in a scene of them talking about overthrowing the government and why it feels like so sudden and jarring compared to like episode 1 when it's just like a Muppet in a chair and his friends going like, well, I don't know if we should have this little boy. Like it's a bit unorthodox.
Well, and that's supposed to play in the whole narrative of like them getting caught with their pants down by the Sith and everything, right?
Right.
In like episode 2, and it's not them accidentally stumbling across like whole cults of them throughout the High Republic. Like they're supposed to be completely ignorant of them. So
that's the thing is like the it's called the High Republic for a reason. It's a pretty good time in there. There you go. Like literally, it's like you are like most people in like, oh, I thought you were doing like Uncle Pennybags, the Monopoly, because like everyone's rich and shit.
This takes place 420 BBY. Am I right?
Snoop Dogg is going to be a Jedi in the next season. I hear.
Get our second purple lightsaber. So
like I don't want to rag on it forever, but it is just like it feels like a fundamental misunderstanding of why people enjoy this time period. Is because it is just filled with like so much. It's filled with just like so much Jedi being Jedi, and they're trying to do good, and it really feels like they grab the version of the Jedi from Revenge of the Sith just before they walk into Palpatine's office, and a part of that is like this guy's a Sith, probably shouldn't leave in charge of the government, but another part of that is like also like we kind of like being in charge of a giant military. It's kind of cool. They just grab them and shove them back in time, and now they're here. And there's just like another it is fair for Disney to make their own lore. They spent $44 billion on it. I'm not going to be like, no. But there's established shit like the hierarchy of the Jedi is solid. Padawan, Knight, Master, Jedi Council, Grand Jedi Council, or Jedi Council Grandmaster. That's the hierarchy. It's solid. And it didn't make sense to me why Green Woman, I don't remember her name, why Green Woman had so much power, because she was in a room of other masters, and then she's like, leave, I need to talk to him. And it's like, no. And like she's ordering all these people around and like conniving and moving all this shit. And it's just like, that's not how this works. This is like, there's not like a sergeant, there's not like a corporal, there's not like a lance corporal. It's just like there's like 5 tiers and it's solid.
Well,
And a lot of
we just don't get that much time with her either. Is
Mhm.
part of the problem.
I believe her
we
name
don't
is Vernestra.
Vernestra,
Gesundheit.
Yeah, thank you.
And like, honest to goodness, I don't actually have as big a problem. I still think the show's ass, to be clear, but that's like a genuine, actual statement. I don't have as big a problem with them adding shit. I think it's fine that the Jedi are flawed and do skullduggery, but it has to be subtle and quiet to a degree they wouldn't realize they're doing wrong. So if it was like the Jedi Council, if she was a Jedi Council member and they were doing this shit,
Mhm.
I would buy it more because they're in charge and they have a vested interest in like keeping their position. Like they've worked for 50 plus years to be recognized as a master, and it's like to be recognized as a council member. It's an honor, it's a privilege, and like I'm in charge of all these. I'm in charge of hundreds of Padawans. I can't let anything bad happen to them. Yada yada yada. She's just some fucking guy with a white lightsaber whip, which like that was also in the trailers, and that was overblown. So like, we see that once, like pew.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I honest to goodness don't have a problem with the witch cult. It's fine. We have it in Clone Wars. Palpatine does Sith magic.
They're both Night Sisters. Like they
Yeah.
named
Yeah.
them. Like they
Like,
have connections. It's fine.
like people were kind of overblowing it in terms of like, oh, now they're like they made an even stronger version of Anakin. Like, not quite. It kind of sounds like they were. It kind of sounds like they were just using these two girls to like build up, like basically prop themselves up as like almost a defense mechanism. Like in case the Jedi come, we have the nuclear option.
Yeah.
And they
end up
would
nuking
have
themselves. So
Yeah, they would have landed a lot stronger if the mom was actually dark side. Like both the moms are actually dark side, and she wasn't just like, well, I actually do love my daughter. You know how she sounds. And also that they didn't have an incongruent song number because they made the executive decision that there would be a lyrical version of the
of the
like of like the
Power
chant
of
they were
Two
doing.
thing.
Oh,
Yeah, a lyrical version of the chant they were doing. That shit ain't happen in Star Wars. You have operatic that fits fine with a space opera. You can't just go like unga 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 kind of shit. But they
unless,
had
like,
that
you're Ewok,
version.
but
True. If it was all evil space Ewoks, we'd be in business. But so they had that version on one layer of the soundtrack, and then at a different timing and a different pitch, they had the actresses in the scene sing a slightly different version of the song at the same time. And that was like I was there watching this shit. I'm just like, whoa, oh no. This is like, did they
that's
leave it on by mistake? Did they
Yeah.
like not disable track before hitting render? Because that wasn't good.
I mean, we're getting into some more like nitty gritty like problems with the show.
I'd say it's a
Which,
big problem.
like, there's a few. I mean, it's one of many, and it's just like a sloppy. It feels like a sloppy assembly of the story, and it also just feels just because they went with this like mystery angle to the whole show, and
Yeah.
it never felt like a satisfying mystery story because they kept like leading you on with these like little hints here and there dropping in of like who the stranger is, who the Sith is, what Kimir's deal is, like what was this big thing that the Jedi did to the witch cult that caused like one of them to commit suicide and one to like self-exile himself, and like all these little things that never really feel like they came to fruition in a satisfying way.
It almost
like
it almost feels like what happened with the sequel movies, which is three different directors, was three, or did they bring the first guy back? I forget.
two different directors.
Yeah. It feels like that, but with almost every episode. I would say that the first three episodes did a pretty good job of like consistent storytelling and aesthetic and rhythm. And then from episode 4 onwards, it was a different show every episode. It was like, okay, we're gonna do mystery. Okay, we're gonna do action. Okay, we're gonna do ass. Okay, we're gonna do ass. Okay, we're gonna do ass. And then they just did like they picked up a rhythm at the end. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
And I do just want to say, slightly off topic, but just to give some credence to it, I'm on the big side of the lightsaber fights. Most of them, the first one they have against Kylo Shmen, not really that great.
Oh,
You
really?
mean Darth
Yeah.
Jason Mendoza of Florida? So
Yeah.
Smilo Ren.
Like the one in the forest, it was cool moments where like they hit the helmet for the first time, and that like the sparking, like the lightsabers turned off. That was pretty cool, but it was really dark, and also
was very dark.
they led into that lightsaber fight at the end of the one episode, and then the first like 5-6 minutes of the next was like Osha's really dizzy. She's gonna stumble around.
Oh,
for a few
dude,
hours.
I think the end of episode 4, when they cut to credits, like right as he pushes everybody away, I like audibly like the cut to credits. I was like, oh, come on. We were leading up to this whole episode, and you have to like wait a week to see the actual fight. Like at that point in the show, I was like really nervous for the quality of the show, because I was like, dude, if they just like skip the whole battle and like they start the episode on Osha, and I'm like, dude, please tell me they're not just like ignoring the actual lightsaber fights. Thankfully, that was not the case. But just like some of the editing decisions, and even like the helmet bit at the end of episode, what was it, 6, I think, and then they cut to credits, and like the placement of the flashback episodes felt weird to me as well. Sometimes it's just like it felt like a very weirdly paced show.
yeah.
The
Flashback
thing-
stuff took way too long at time as well.
Well,
so.
and taking entire episodes, like a quarter of the show is dedicated to flashback sequences, which
is not necessarily, that's not necessarily a bad thing. They're telling
It's
the
not
story.
inherently
Like,
a bad thing. No.
we need to know what happened.
Yeah.
It's just that I don't know what you do here, because it's like top to bottom the story is kind of bad, so I don't think it really matters where you put the flashbacks, because it's like the information they reveal is no more pertinent than before or after. The guess everyone had watching the show at the beginning was, oh, they killed the witches, and the reveal 7/8 through the show was, oh, we killed the witches and didn't tell anybody. But for the lightsaber stuff, I do just want to like make clear stuff that will stick with me going, because like you remember like good lightsaber fights, Ahsoka versus Darth Maul, Anakin versus Obi-Wan, Anakin versus Obi-Wan parts 2 and 3, still good fights. Luke versus Vader. The bit where Kamir does the 3 ignite on the little like blonde girl, pew, pew, pew.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's fucking brutal. He's like,
Yeah.
he's seen this series. He knows a one to the cut
Yeah.
is not good enough.
Yeah.
That, and like for like everyone felt like robbed of the Wookiee Jedi fight. And then like, okay, I'll admit for like episode 7, they brought it back fucking hard. Like
Dude,
he was
terrifying.
They kind of really demonstrated, it's just like, hey, you know how like Wookiees were already like pretty scary. I mean, they've been described since the very beginning. It's just like, don't mess with them.
Only a
they'll rip
Wookiee
your arms
lightsaber
off.
fight, but a like brainwashed Wookiee lightsaber fight who's fighting against the Jedi.
Yeah,
like, I just like the bits of like his free hand grabbing the blonde kid's face and just like,
dude, yeah, and like the blood on his face too. Like that was there was some really good brutality in the fights, and like the stranger snapping the one dude's Yord, I think his name was, snapping Yord's neck.
He snapped his Yord.
I think maybe that's one thing that they broadcasted well, is just like, hey, even though there are lots of Jedi out there, like this isn't them still like at their most powerful. This is where, like as Michael described earlier, this is where they're more monkish. They're like, yes, they're practicing like their stances and stuff, but it's more art form. It's not actually really like defensive stuff. It's just usually just them being a Jedi. Like that's the defense there. Them actually having to use their lightsaber is different story.
Yeah, like if you went 100 years back for like it's Lord of the Rings logic. The further back in time you go, the closer you get to just being like the average man is God. Like that's basically
Right.
what you're getting. Is like
Yeah.
it's the same thing with like, oh, the clones are cool. Like take a Republic commando from 1,000 years ago, and he could defeat the whole CIS in an afternoon
Right.
Yeah.
with like a toothpick. He'll be the fucking John Wick of Star Wars.
There you go.
Um, but then the other thing was, I did like it though. I did end up liking Saul and Khmer's final fight just
Me too,
because they kept to a very specific logic, which I always found really cool. And the reason why Palpatine was like, we can't let any Jedi, even the weakest Jedi, live, is specifically because the Sith emotional thing is good for them because they don't have to worry about being focused. They can just throw shit at you. The
Mhm.
reason Jedi scare them is because a focused Jedi is a defensive Jedi, and they will find your weakness if they live
Yeah.
long enough. And they say, and that was the cool bit there, is because Soul locked in, and he was like, "I'm going to meet you in the eyes, and we're going to do this mano a mano. No,
This is
patching
where
up." Yeah,
I found a good analogy. This is where like Soul was almost kind of like a very highly trained samurai, where it's
Mhm.
just like, I'm gonna do my defensive blows, but like the moment I'm able
I
to
get
find
an
that
opening.
one weak spot, I'm gonna take it. So, and
Yeah.
I just need that one blow. So
Totally.
that honestly, even though it wasn't as flashy, might have been like the best fight of the series, at least Soul versus Khmer again, just because they like the bit where they're on the catwalk and the lightsaber like slices through that one section like butter, because
I
that's
love
like
that.
that's generally been a problem I've seen a lot of Star Wars media does, is like lightsabers can cut through anything if it is flesh and it is less than a millimeter thick, in which case you're gonna get some resistance. That was like, zoop, nope, nothing's
Right.
there. But yeah, just like those bits, like that was pretty solid.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I also liked the
I-
boomerang throw that Khmer did as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that bit where he like that was my favorite bit there, and that fight probably is also another bit that's going to be locked in the memory. Is throwing the two lightsabers and then Soul deignites his and just blasts away, reignites
Mhm.
his, like purely focused on defense, waiting for that chance. That's
Yeah.
solid Jedi work. And then about 10 minutes later, they start talking, and the show gets worse.
And then
Yeah.
feelings kill him. So
Yeah.
He felt so sad he died. Osha's just like, what the fuck? I didn't do anything. I let go. He's dead.
Yeah, that was another like big problem for me was the switch in how it was done of May and Osha. Like May's sudden change of heart to like abandon her whole kind of quest of killing the Jedi felt
Yeah.
very abrupt. And then it all got really confusing to me really quickly when like she abandons her mission and goes to try and find the Jedi to like help or something or like confess.
yeah.
And then she gets locked in Kalnaka's house while Khmer fights the Jedi. And then after the fight, she decides to take Osha's place to then try and continue her quest in slaying
Killing Soul. Yeah.
Soul.
Because
But
it's a
then-
different writer. The writer didn't watch the other episodes. Okay, Green?
Like-
he got the notes. He was
The
like,
notes of just like, hey, we're like mirroring the sisters now, which they did well with, like, hey, Khmer like starting that slow corruption of Osha, where it's just like, hey, like around
Yeah.
and with me, you can let go a little bit more, give in to like those feelings, and I'm gonna full on tell you the truth of everything.
I
Whereas,
needed more episodes for that to really feel satisfying, I think. Like I
yeah,
think
yeah,
conceptually and in like theory it sounds really cool, but like what was there and executed just didn't feel
yeah.
satisfactory enough.
Because on the opposite end with Soul and May, it's just like, well, none of that happened.
Right.
Like, it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, he was.
Well, that was
honest
also
with
a
her,
different
but-
kind of setup of like her finally learning what really happened and what
Yeah.
Soul did.
But like,
Um,
but would that fully sway her back over to being?
No, and then like
Good
that's the
side.
other thing of like is she? Yeah, I don't really understand where we kind of leave off with May, other than her like just being brainwashed or not brainwashed, memory wiped.
Yeah.
Forgetty spaghetti, as the psychologists call it.
Like I understand like OSHA, because I guess
Nothing, Nick?
Kimir was going to
Nothing for
kill
you?
May. No. I'm trying to
Focus.
keep it on track. I guess Kimir was going to kill May for like abandoning her acolyte position, and OSHA like struck a bargain with him basically and say like take me in her place or something. I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah.
like there's so much of this. We haven't even talked about the big thing in the room, which is
Kelnaka.
I'm Darth Plagueis. I'm in a cave over here.
Oh,
So
yeah.
okay, and I mean, you say big thing in the room. It's really like, and
Creepy thing
it
in
got
the
me
cave,
when
so.
it showed up. I'm like, oh, we're
'Cause,
going
yeah,
there.
it got me too, because I thought we were gonna fucking do something with it.
Yeah.
I thought he was
It's
gonna
like-
show up.
There was this lingering thing of like, but they even didn't really lean into it much of Kimir having his own Sith master necessarily. So like, credit to
Is
the
he
show
still in
and
the
that.
cave at the end of the show, like watching them watch the ocean and hold hands? Is he
So-
still in there?
Like there wasn't necessarily a tease of another Sith coming. There was a lot of theorizing about it and everything, and like everyone was wondering, oh, is he going to have his own master that he's trying to portray, and that's why he's training OSHA. But like him showing up for that literal like split second is like, oh, that's Plagueis, and then that's
Yeah.
it, and it's like, I guess we have to wait for season 2, and like
How's he?
it's
How's he
just-
hiding? Because like his species.
well, and then when you bring up the whole logistics of it too, is like, is
Yeah, 'cause-
Kimir training the acolyte to betray his master right in front of
No,
his master?
my
Yeah.
logistics thing is that like his species, the Munya, are like fucking like almost like 3 meters tall. How is he
Right.
hiding physically?
Yeah.
How does he creep around when he weighs 300 pounds? Head alone.
To be fair, I don't know how much mythology of Plagueis is canon currently, because
they
the
had-
book isn't.
Like, but it's too late. They had another Munyan in that meeting with the CIS, and he was as big as he is in the book.
That's where I'm going with it, though. Is like, we don't know if they're keeping Plagueis as a
Midget?
minion.
Yeah.
A little small.
Like, they might change his race, they might change his height. Like, and I think stuff like that, personally, I really don't care as much about. Like, especially also just touching on, I don't know if you guys heard about all the discourse surrounding the Coyote Mundi stuff, but like,
It's fine.
when you
Oh.
are getting into that level of weeds on things, it's like, dude, I don't care. It's like,
to
it's
be
at
clear,
best a cameo.
to be
so-
clear, I am joking about the height stuff. He's high. We
Sure,
could like
yeah.
Sith
Yeah.
like masking their presence. Fine, sure.
Right.
Like it is just goofy to imagine him like sneaking around,
Yeah.
and he's like 3 meters tall. The Katamundi thing was like way overblown. Like, okay, cool. See,
Oh,
that's the thing.
Oh, yeah.
Is like they had a cameo, and I was like, oh, that's good. That's fine. He's there in the background. He has 2 lines. They changed around his birthday. People got up to like, how does he not know about the Sith? Like, clearly they're just not going to tell him. They're just not going to tell him. Like, they lied at
Right.
the
Yeah.
end.
They're
But
not going
then-
to write out a letter and send it to Jedi Council headquarters. Say, hey,
Yeah.
Sith are here. So
Yeah.
But then, like at the episode 6, then episode 7, they fucking show Plagueis, and then episode 8, back of Muppet Yoda's head, and he was a Muppet. You could see like when he like nodded
Yeah.
his head, his whole
Yeah.
body tipped back. You think they
And
couldn't
you
have
see
like?
his little ears go up, right?
You think they
Yeah.
couldn't find like the actual Yoda like Muppet, so they just got like a doll? Like,
it's
Well, I
actually
wonder
probably
if it was just
uh,
the Last Jedi puppet that they used.
couldn't find it. Couldn't find it.
or probably it's just a Grogu one that they just put some extra hair on top. So
Yeah. It's the
Um,
aged up Grogu that they're using for Mandalorian and Grogu movie,
That's what it's titled after all.
which takes
Mandalorian.
place 900 years in the future.
yeah.
They do a
Um,
huge time jump where Grogu is a Grand Master Jedi and Mando is long dead.
But no, it's like from scene to scene, even it feels like there's a total misunderstanding. Like even if we go ahead and say this property is not Star Wars. Let's live in the world where this is its own original thing. Does this story and characters make sense? Put away the lore, put away all this thing. Does the motivation from episode 1 lead to the motivation of episode 8, which, by the way, it was very funny. They stopped caring. So when that episode came out, it was just titled episode 8. It was later fixed to the Acolyte.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, like I checked, like yesterday and earlier today, it was still titled episode 8.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's like they're still trying to connect it, and I get it from a like synergy standpoint and trying to appeal to like kind of, I don't know if they're trying to appeal to mass audiences and like be like, oh yeah, you recognize this character, and they're trying to connect it to the prequels still and the saga, or
like
what?
that's from what I've seen, because like that's the thing is like the audience for this seems to be young adult. That's it. It's like young adult, or rather the people interested in young adult fiction. So we're probably gauging more 12 to 14, and that's what I saw. I saw yesterday there was a reunion. You renew the Acolyte hashtag, and everyone in there was talking about how much they like the pairing of Osha and Kamir.
Right, yeah.
And his brother go over there.
So stupid.
And all of them were really
Scott,
come back. I have more to say. It wasn't just a bit. And all of them really seemed to like that pairing. I don't get it, but that's fine. Enjoy your own thing. But that really seems to be who this was for. The boys took off their shirts. The girls told jokes to each other. And there was like flirting with the darks and all this shit. But you could like, here's the thing. You could go to 2 out of 3 dads and you could be like, Dad, do you want to watch Andor? It's kind of like a space spy thriller. You could go to your uncle, like, hey, do you want to sit down and watch Obi-Wan episodes 1, 2, and 8? Not the rest. It doesn't matter because like it's got Darth Vader and Obi-Wan.
That is more than I would watch.
Like it's got Darth Vader, Obi-Wan, need enough story, cool lightsaber fights, all that stuff. You can't really go to anyone and sit down and watch this with them unless it's like to honestly make fun of it. Because this is like, I don't know who this is going to grab and be like, damn, I really want to sit through, what is it now, like 27 hours? Because like almost, I guess like probably close to 24 hours of movies. Because like every movie is like 2.5-ish hours, like 24, 25 hours. I want to sit down, watch all those, and then this will also further get me into all the other millions of hours. I don't think this can be a gateway product, which means it has to be a thing for people who are already fans of it.
At the very least, you need to be like a fan of like episodes 1, 2, and 3, so you can understand. Okay, like this is like civil war, and like when the Jedi are becoming corrupt, but then for whatever reason we're starting in a place where there's already lots of corrupt Jedi. So
I guess like the way you can view it honestly is because it seems to be just like 4 or 5 people know what the fuck is going on. You can just be like, well, they're ass, but everyone else is still cool, because apparently the council doesn't know shit, and they're just gonna like every time Green Lady, who's been up to some shit a lot, just goes like, oh, Saul did it. They're like, well, she's never lied before. We've never checked if she's lied before, but okay. Yeah. And then they go back to arts and crafts and shit. I don't know, like if I can just like fan fiction for a bit, like you can do a show like this. Just don't put in too much mishmash. Put those 6 or however many Jedi on that planet on Brendok. Ship can't fly. That's not a new thing in Star Wars. It's easy to make ship not fly.
Yeah.
And then they're stuck there with the witch cult and have them go against the witch cult. Or like they fucking, the witch cult goes against them and they kill most of them, but one of them gets away. And so then it becomes a spy thriller. Where did the witch cult lady go? We're following her through the galaxy. And then you can do all that kind of shit. I kind of do know what they're doing. I know what Disney is doing. They want to stop paying royalties. because every time they bring up something from some book or use John Williams' score, they have to pay royalties. And so what they're
So,
doing,
They own it.
but that's like that is my running theory, and that's or it's like an ownership thing of like, well, we want Disney Star Wars, so we're like we're gonna make our own thingy. So it's not the Force, it's the thread. It's not the Sith, it's lesbian space witches. It's like all this other stuff that like they're trying to build their own universe, little plate, little platter inside of a buffet, and they're like, come here, come to the plate, come to the plate, come look what we made, and everyone else is just like, no, it's shit. I like the other stuff that was there before. Why not more of that? It's like that's too expensive. Don't want to do that.
Yeah,
but it's a
I
buffet,
don't know.
Michael.
It's it. I've surrendered myself to like just accepting the stuff I do like in this like galaxy and letting the people enjoy like what they like. And like this clearly, I don't like I when we talk about like who this was made for, I don't know that I have a clear answer to that. I don't know that they even had a clear answer to that.
Yeah.
Past just being like, well, we've started establishing this High Republic era. Let's try and make some sort of show for it.
Yeah.
Some sort of
And
show.
I think just to agree with like the same point, it's just like still keeping it too close to like the film's time period was the wrong decision. Like setting
Yeah,
it
and,
back
like-
even further, that would have been probably a better decision. Having it so that you could still nostalgia bomb your audience with like, oh, here's Yoda at the very end. Oh, we got you. So
Gotcha.
it's just like, yeah, it's just like, well, no, like I'm almost still vaguely familiar with like this republic that you're setting things in. I know what's going to ultimately happen. Where it's just like, yeah, no, like if it was set like 500 years beforehand, it's just like it could be good.
It just yeah, it's because that well is running dry of like goodwill and nostalgia for a chunk of fans, I would say. Like,
oh yeah,
because like Boba Fett shows up in it doesn't like really hold that same weight anymore, because Mace Windu is a character that we know. And I mean, like, this is a certain subsect of like the Star Wars fandom, because I do think, I mean, Star Wars is huge. I do think there is a big audience out there that would love to see like a Mace Windu spin-off movie or whatever, right? Where we learn that Mace Windu is alive secretly.
Mace Windu's hands came to life.
Yeah.
And they're going to get revenge.
yeah.
Thing.
But I'm part of that group that's just like, I don't need any familiar characters anymore. I just want good, honest storytelling, even if it's not, it doesn't need to be like super adult or super mature necessarily. Like, you can still make all ages family friendly stories that have depth to them, and this just didn't feel like it. Someone made a really funny, it's more funny, like it's kind of mean as well, but like made a really funny comment about the show early on in its airing, of this feels like a show that people in the Star Wars universe would watch on TV, about like a like space procedural drama, basically, of Jedi Knights investigating a murder spree, basically. And it does still kind of feel that way. I do get those hints of like young adult fiction that you brought up, Michael. Like, I can totally see that blueprint in Osha and Kimir. But yeah, I just don't know that there's really enough here for me to bother investing in further.
Follow me on this. So you got Osha and May, who are going to be like Bella. You got Kamir, who's going to be like Edward. And then you're going to have Darth Plagueis as like Jacob. So so whose team are you going to be on? Are you going to be on Team Kamir or Team Plagueis? So
I think she's going to have Plagueis as baby, honestly.
I think she's going to get the Plagueis if she sleeps with Khmer.
When do they play vampire baseball is all I need to know.
When there's a lightning storm, okay?
Yeah, right, of
Even
course.
though that baseball diamond was pretty like far away. But let's talk about Twilight a different day.
Yeah.
That's
we'll do a re-review show on that another time.
The thing for me though is I wouldn't be this upset if it wasn't clear that some people cared. Because there was the shot in episode 3 where they had the Republic ship in the flashback. They had a Republic ship, and it was like, okay, that is a Republic ship. From the design to the paint to the color scheme, the little speeder that the Wookiee has.
I
that's
thought the robes
Republic.
worked.
I'm middling on the robes, and that's also because I showed you guys, like, I did a color test where I just grabbed it and took the saturation up and the shadows down and made it look like a fucking Star Wars property, not like the fucking Mr. Sunday show.
The makeup is a different thing from the wardrobe, I think. Some of the makeup was a little made for TV.
That's fine.
Some instances.
That's fine. Like I like people complain like, oh, that head looks fake. Like, look at I like Star Wars when it has a rubbery feel. I like when it looks like you can touch the aliens against their permission.
But to
maybe
point,
I've just reached the point.
There was like a lot of actors where it's just like, my skin's painted a different color, I'm alien. It's just like, no, you're not. So
I have a couple horns poking out of my forehead. I don't know.
Like,
maybe I've just reached the point as well in my taste for Star Wars of like, I think I feel pretty strongly that it just inherently works better animated, because like just comparing it to live action anyway too, like a lot of the puppet work like just feels janky, and so like a lot of aliens like don't have the like full range of motion that they do in animation. And just like your limit or your what is it? Your possibilities are endless in animation, basically.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. That's a personal thing that I'm working through. But
it's just like beyond a visual thing. Is you could tell that there were people who cared. The people like the stunt coordinators who planned the lightsaber fights, because in the script,
keep them on for the rest of Star Wars production.
I don't want to share the writers too much, because like that's the thing is like I've been part of productions where it's like you want to blame the writers, but then you think about writing a script while $1 billion CEO is over your shoulder like, and I want this and put this in. I am Darth Sidious in disguise. But like probably on the writing side of it, they put there in squared brackets, they fight. And then a stunt coordinator came in and like, okay, you're gonna take a lightsaber, go pew pew pew, and they're like cool shit like that. Lots of fun things like that. The robes, to a point, I get what they were going for. Like they're like richer in like funds, so they can afford nicer robes. I do just prefer the gray, like the more dull color scheme of the prequels more though. Like I felt that was more subtle. And all this other shit is like you go to episode 8 and you look at the design of that one Republic politician who's like going against the Jedi, and
Senator Mr. Door.
Senator Mr. Door. He looks like someone from Star Wars. There were people who gave a shit, and then other people way higher on the chain were like, "We're gonna take a shit instead of giving one." And that's my problem with it. It's just like it's not fair. It's not fair to the people who like care about this shit, put their name on it, and like, hey, look, I did a good job designing all of this one part from top to bottom, and then the rest of it is crap. Except, I'm sorry for the composer of the 2 is 1 song. Both versions of that, both in the soundtrack and in the real life, were dumb, and you shouldn't have done it. Just have them hum or something with like a low like bass tone. Don't have them sing in Star Wars. They did that for Life Day.
Bring back Life Day. So,
but those are my many thoughts.
Yeah. Scott, do you have any other kind of closing thoughts? We can start to wrap this up.
Yeah. I think I'll just highlight again. I mean, acting chops were there, lightsaber fights were there. Them hinting at the better parts of High Republic, I enjoyed, as fleeting as they were.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, yeah, like there was parts of the show where I was just like, I know where this is going already, so I'm gonna just tune out for a little bit. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. There was just too few moments for me that really got me excited about watching the show. Like anytime a lightsaber battle started, I sat up in my seat. I was like, okay, here we go. Because I grew to understand the level of quality throughout the show as well. But other than that, like it was just at best, I was like meandering through it, just kind of trying to follow along as they led me through this just half effort story and like severely underdeveloped characters. And like, yeah, not all of the production, because like even as faulty as the sequel trilogy is, I would say from a production standpoint and just like a technical standpoint, other than like maybe like you could argue the choreography, um, maybe a couple other things, but like production wise, those felt through and through like Star Wars and like some of the best looking and sounding Star Wars out there. Whereas this one just felt very inconsistent for me. Um, and yeah, it's just not something I imagine I'm going to revisit unless season 2 gets rave reviews. Then I might not check it out. I might just check out whatever highlight reels come to YouTube later on.
I like that. I like that as a stipulation of like, I don't know if I'll check out season 2, and if it's good, I still won't check it out. I'll watch bits of it.
Yeah.
You know what, Disney? I'll throw you a bone. I'll watch pieces of your show on YouTube if other people say it's good.
That's I think the result of just their constant churning out of content and turning Star Wars into content, and like really just quality over quality over quantity with this property, in my opinion. And just like take the time. I know it's not a realistic expectation, unfortunately, because like they need to please shareholders and they need to put something Star Wars new out every year to whatever end that is. But it's just like take the time with it, really. Like, and I mean this goes for kind of Hollywood in general overall. There is some more hope overall, but just like story, characters, lock down the script, really make sure you have a tight lid on that shit, and then go from there with everything else, you know?
My prediction, my force prediction, if you will, is that season 2 is going to be better because they can't spend another $180 million on this shit. So they will have to cut fat. They cannot fucking bring in
like
30 million characters who will die in an episode.
Yeah.
I guess.
They will have to.
So, like, what would you consider fat in this season, though?
4 episodes. Season 2, make that 4 episodes, because the thing is, like, this did not go as they wanted it to. I guarantee.
But then, like, are those hour-long episodes? Like, at that point, just make a movie, right? Like,
this is my prediction. Also, still, is like they're going to cut the fat, and this is what most Star Wars shows should be, in my honest opinion. Is like, I'm okay with 8 episode 1 hour things, but have a point. There was Obi-Wan did not need to be 8 episodes, but they're addicted to that number. Ahsoka should have been 6. They deserve more. Obi-Wan should have been 3 or 4. My assumption is that they're going to have to cut the fat. They're going to be like, well, we have this thing. We cannot not end it. We cannot, as Disney, say, it failed so hard and so spectacularly, we have to let it die and sit there on our streaming service forever until like in 3 years when we pull it off. So my prediction is they're going to pump it out. It's going to be 4 episodes, and they're going to go to the writers. We don't care, just end it. And once they walk out of the room, the writers can then make a good show, and it's going to be better. And then Disney's going to be like, fuck, we ended it, and now people want a season 3. That's my force prediction, is that the second they leave the room.
Oh, dude.
This has happened bar none. Like, every single time the series in Disney's hold gets popular, the producers walk into the room and his follow-up is worse.
I have a rebuttal to that, Michael.
Yes, what's
They
up?
might try as hard as they can to end that show, but we already have video evidence of them resurrecting a Star Wars Disney Plus show to come back for another season after the creators kind of like ending it in Mandalorian season 2.
Oh yeah.
Like that ended on a pretty like wrapped up note, pretty much, I would say. At least not to come back anytime soon. And they were like coerced into bringing it back because they wanted more Grogu and more Mandalorians. So
We want more Grogu.
so I don't know. I don't have that. I mean, it's your prediction, so like yeah, we'll
It's
see.
my force prediction.
It's your
my
force prediction.
So, like, remember, the force is cloudy. So, like, I'm seeing things that
true.
it wants me to see, but not
Anything could
necessarily.
happen.
That's the best thing about force predictions is like it's set in stone, but also
not at the same time. Okay.
hold on, we got to hear
could-
from Scott. What's your force prediction, Scott?
Do you have any force prediction?
My force prediction is that
Darth Jar Jar will somehow be involved.
yeah, somehow Darth Jar Jar returned. So
If they have
the
an
past.
episode where like they save two Gungans and like they're holding a baby Gungan and they're like, "Oh, what's its name?" and then cut to credits.
yeah,
Jesus Christ.
the ending.
Any actual thoughts, Scott?
I mean, I'm in no rush to see season 2.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they come out with it, yeah, I might give it a shot. But like, I'm just gonna take that bar and I'm gonna set it down to tripping height.
It, yeah.
So,
I think this show was one of many that was part of that kind of MCU style planning far ahead, and like we'll have this show come out then, this show come out then, you know. And I think we've kind of reached that tail end of it. I mean, seemingly, because we don't really have much on the horizon anyway.
yeah.
So hopefully they're maybe kind of taking a note from like Marvel's playbook and like just taking a step back, like working behind the scenes to make sure everything is like top notch, and then we'll just come out swinging in a couple years or something.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Yeah, I'm setting higher expectations for Ahsoka season 2.
Okay.
Like, I want them to come back and really nail that out of the park with Thrawn's return and more stuff going on with Rebels.
Right.
Like, if they're gonna do the money dump and have like quality story and character stuff come out of at least one thing, I want it to be there.
Okay.
If Acolyte just kind of dies out, it dies out. So
I really don't know what's going to happen with Andor season 2 beyond the fact that William Skarsgård is going to die. Like that's it. Like he can't show up later. He can't like. Are they going to end the series with him like at a bar and there on like the fucking news screen is like John Andor fucking died on the planet? He's like shit.
John Andor.
He was one of my best agents. He was, and then he's like a pint to you, and then he drinks, and then that's the end of it. Like
No.
beyond that, I'm like that's like where I'm like they made a good show with Andor. It's not quite my cup of tea. I prefer more of the space wizards, but it's like it's a decently good like space spy thriller for dads to watch and feel like finally good Star Wars again. But it's kind of like we know he dies. Like we know a pretty significant portion of his journey.
Yeah.
And he like pretty much ended up joining the rebellion at the end of the first season or like getting close to it. And it's just like, is the next season just going to be like Rebellion Black Ops? Is it just good? Because like we've seen his personal journey. I was about to say from like man who wouldn't shoot man to man who would, but he shot those two guys at the beginning of the first episode. So he's like, I'm getting on Andor now. What was his journey in Andor? Like he's just like I'm not feeling big on the rebellion until like rebellion.
He is fighting for the rebellion.
yeah.
Okay, that was his personal journey.
Yeah. And then like from end of season 1 to Rogue One, it's just the gap of like him fighting so hard for the rebellion that he would do anything, which involves just killing innocent people and like the ends justify the means type of thing. I while I do have faith in season 2 of Andor, I honestly don't need it to actually be good. Like even if there's a like studio intervention like to the brim, like season 1 we have it. Like I'm happy. Like the bridge from season 1 and or to Rogue One feels just fine to me. So it really like doesn't matter to me honestly, but I do have faith in Tony Gilroy and the like creative team behind that season.
Just make it the number of episodes it should be. Don't make it 8. Stop making it 8. What is your obsession with that? If it needs to be 5, make it 5.
I don't know.
One's going to
We're going to wrap things up here because we could like stay here for another hour just talking anything
about the number 8
Star Wars. So, thank you so much, Michael and Scott, for joining me on this Return to the No Score Review show. Unfortunately, wasn't a super positive one. There's a few things here that we liked, but overall, I don't think it's much of a recommendation from any of us. If you liked it, great. If you're watching this review this deep in and you did love it, please feel free to let us know like what you loved about it down in the comments below. I know I was telling my guests before we started that like I've seen tons of love for this show, and I'm happy that people are finding things to enjoy about it. I'm glad that everybody's getting some Star Wars to love, but it just wasn't for me personally. So yeah, that's where we'll leave this review. Michael, where can the people find you?
In their closets when they're not expecting me.
Easy
nowhere. Oh, Just Plagueis. Nowhere right now. Working on a few things. Hopefully, have a book out one day. But for right now, I guess hopefully find me here again one day. Otherwise, I am on Twitter at InfinityGohan.
Awesome. And Scott, how about you? Where can the people find you?
I mean, same game. I'm on Twitter, as I'll always call it, at Scoptimus7. So you can find me and all my silly thoughts there. And then, you check out all the other previous episodes we do here.
Yeah, I've made a special playlist for all of my Star Wars reviews, most of which I think, actually all of them, feature Scott. So go check those out. We missed Bad Batch Season 3. Unfortunately, I do really want to talk about that, just that show overall, because that's one of my favorite things Disney has done with the Disney Star Wars era. I think overall it's really consistent. Season 2 is probably the weakest one for me, but definitely would love to do a re-review of that at some point. But yeah, you can check that playlist out. It features Andor Season 1 review. We talk about, I think, Vision Volume 2. And I think Mando Season 3, and there's a couple other things in there as well. And then you can also be sure to find me on youtube.com/noscore or /@noscore. I don't know how it works nowadays. Because the review show is posted to YouTube as well as your favorite podcast listening service. So just stay tuned on those channels for all of those. I'm going to try to keep up a consistent rollout of new episodes and new reviews and everything. I'm hopefully going to be getting a Deadpool and Wolverine review out within the next couple weeks, hopefully. But I will probably be doing more of a slow rollout. It'll just kind of happen when it happens. I still got lots of life stuff going on. So I will hopefully get back in the saddle sooner rather than later, but it'll happen when it happens. Just let it happen naturally. Otherwise, you can also go check out my gaming channel, No Score Plays, where I play a lot of indie games, mostly puzzle games and like point and click adventure games if you're into that type of thing. I've got about 500 videos on there if you want to go work your way through that backlog. But otherwise, you can find me on all the socials at No Score or at No Score Reviews. And until then, we'll see you all in the next review. Bye-bye.
Bye, Yoda.